Hello there. Welcome to Ask John. I've lost track of the number of episodes. This might be number 25, but that's just a good guess. I'm really enjoying doing this show, which we call Ask John. I'm John Reicher, by the way. And this show started out as a way for me to promote my business. I hired someone to come in and interview me and ask me financial questions. And that worked out pretty well. And then I found someone else to come in and ask financial questions. And then I started asking questions. And I found that I enjoyed that a whole lot more than talking. And so I found I found interesting people. And I have been interviewing one interesting person after another for, I guess, a couple of years now. It's been fun. And today so maybe I should call it John Asks. But, Ask John sounds a lot better. And I have a really fun guest with me today. Well, he's not with me today. He's with me on Zoom, and he's actually in Dallas. And I met him. I'm not sure I actually met him. I was on this app called Periscope, which is if you don't know, it's it's something like Facebook or Twitter or there's a lot of different apps. And I just bumped into this guy who was walking down the street with a selfie stick and saying really smart things. Who is this? And I kept watching him. And so finally, on social media, on this particular app, you can't really talk to the person, but you can. There's a little chat you can type in. So I said, hey, let's talk. So we've had a couple of telephone conversations. And then he came to my Rotary Club and he talked. Well, he didn't come to my Rotary Club. He went on Zoom to my Rotary Club. And we've been having a good time, Josh and I. Josh grew up in Cincinnati, in a very bad part of Cincinnati. Actually, he mentioned the street that he grew up on. And one of my Rotarian friends said, yeah, that's not a very good place to grow up. And Josh, it was it was a pretty rough area. So as a kid, he had to learn to defend himself physically, which not all of us have to do that. That was his experience, and there were a lot of drug dealing, and even some in his family. And Josh has brought himself up from that. He told me a story about something that he wanted to accomplish, and somebody told him, "No, you can't do that." And so that's all it took. He did it. Anyway, he has really, really made something of himself. I consider him something of a philosopher, a modern day philosopher. And he's read a lot of Napoleon Hill and Goddard. And he can tell us about that. And Eckhart Tolle, which I've read some of that, so I can speak to that. Anyway, Josh is now in Dallas, and welcome, Josh.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it. Thank you.
So my challenge with Josh is, I know once I get him going, he just keeps going. He's just a wealth of information and philosophy, I guess, but it's really solid stuff. So, Josh, tell me, why did you ever decide? What made you decide that you're kind of like a self-proclaimed prophet or something? How do you get that? Who anointed you?
I'll tell you. I grew up with a lot of uncertainty, as you said. I was not certain about the next dollar, or if I would be safe walking around the corner, or any certainty whatsoever. So my desire became, I want to know what never changes. I want to know how this place is set up and what never changes, so that I can make my decisions based on that. And the first place I looked was to, houses, money, and success. But I realized that waxes and wanes. Then I depended on people, which I realized were just as fickle as the buildings. And then I went to, as you say, philosophy. And it was a lot of different philosophies. And that finally brought me to principles. And that is where I spent all of my time diving into, and this was over the course of about 8 to 10 years of studying and searching, where I found principles that never change.
So you did a lot of reading. Who was the first? Who's the first?
I did a lot of reading. I read about 1,000.
Who was the first that you studied?
The first person I studied was Napoleon Hill. First book I read in 18 years, I had never read a book. It was Robert Kiyosaki's Rich Dad, Poor Dad. That set my brain on fire, but the real one I started to study was right after that, Napoleon Hill.
Okay. And then I've heard you talk in one of your Periscope, what do we call them? Periscope talks.
Mm-hmm.
I guess people call them scopes now, don't they?
Scopes, they call it scopes, yep.
Yeah, one of your scopes, you were talking about Napoleon Hill and where, not that he was lacking, but there's someone else who kind of picked up the slack maybe, or just picked up on it.
So Napoleon Hill really started me on the idea that thinking is connected to the results you get. And he studied so many people that I just paid attention to his findings, but when I applied them to my life, I wasn't able to catch it completely. Now, that's not normal. I'm the kind of person who needs to know why before I can do the what. Why am I doing this and why does it work? So that I understand how to apply it to my life. I can't do what until I understand why. And Napoleon Hill, he explains why, but not to the depth that I need in order to apply it. Now I need certainty, I told you.
And you were saying that Napoleon Hill is more like it's probably a good guidebook of for someone who just wants the direction.
Yeah, if you want some direction, if a person wants some direction and you read Napoleon Hill's book, it'll give you some basics on what's missing out of my success philosophy and what's not. But after that, if you read Napoleon Hill for a while, you should be able to succeed from that. But that just didn't satisfy me. I'm a guy who wants to teach, who wants to truly understand. So I had to bring that into my experience, and I had to study people who understood the principles. That's Thomas Troward, that's Neville Goddard. Those two people, and then obviously some quantum physics. That might be a little way out there. It sounds way out there. But I had to study science. I had to study principles of science. I had to find the principles of science that transferred to mental science. I wanted to know the science of life. And I did study that. I studied the science. And
do you have any degrees?
No degrees. I went to college for 3 years, but I stopped once I realized what I would learn. I said, what I would learn here, I can just learn through experience. So I stopped.
Yeah.
I started my first business after that. And that was about 2 years after I stopped, 1.5 years to 2 years after I stopped, I started my own business. That taught me everything I needed to know about communications and interpersonal communication. And that's where I started. That's where I began. I took an IQ test. My IQ is not, it's not super crazy or insane. It's right under the person who graduated. It's like right there. But I really never thought of anything about it. It never stopped me from getting what I wanted and helping the people who I wanted to help. That was all me. That was all my decision. That was all faith.
I like to say there's all kinds of different, there's different kinds of intelligence. So I think you're at a very high level of, I don't know how to define it. Maybe it's not definable, but you're at a very high level from everything I experienced.
Thank you. Thank you.
So you're out there, and you're just out there every day, out on the street with your selfie stick, just
I am.
And you get people to follow you, and they come on and they ask you questions and they ask for advice. What is the main topic that you like to cover? Could you boil it down to one phrase at the topic?
Yeah. The topic I like to cover is miracles.
Miracles.
If I had to boil it down to one word, it would be miracles. It's not the typical way a person would think about miracles, but nevertheless, it's miraculous. And that miracle stems from thinking and being. So what I've noticed, I told you this before, I've noticed things happen that seem to be impossible. I've watched people who had cancer, denied the chemotherapy, decided to do their version of prayer, and came out of the situation cancer-free within a few days. I've watched the girl's eyesight be restored from she wears glasses to now she doesn't. Her eyesight was restored. I've watched a kid's cancer who's a young 7 or 8 year old boy. We felt him to be healed, and he was healed a month later. The mother of this child showed us X-rays of the kid with cancer in his body, and a month later, she sends us a message. Thank you for the healing.
Do you consider yourself a healer?
I think we're all healers to a degree, and yeah, I would say the healing energy comes through me.
So, what is your advice? What do you tell people?
So, when I give advice, I have to start with the principle. I told you I needed to know why before what. So, when I tell a person advice about healing, the little part that needs to be understood is that we don't do the healing, but there is a healing intelligence that runs our body. It beats our heart, it pumps our blood, it circulates our oxygen, it changes a banana that we eat into physical body. So that intelligence is already life-giving and healthy.
I heard you say once that to look inside and find the God within.
Yes. And that is the intelligence that we talked about earlier. I don't claim any of the intelligence to belong to my limited consciousness, but I do know how to submit ideas to an infinite intelligence that comes through me. So that is what I recognize as the healing power, the miraculous power. It's something that comes through, but doesn't belong to, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So yeah, looking to the God within is really observing the intelligence that is deep within our bodies. And when you go deep inside of the body, you'll go beyond the body. That's what you'll experience. But that came from me meditating, me going within and finding what was there. And I realized it was more than I thought. You know, it just was, it's a journey, and it's still happening.
Do you meditate every day?
Every day. I almost meditate. I'm in a meditative state the majority of the day. But when I actually sit down to meditate, yes, I do that every day. In the morning, it's for about an hour every morning, hour to 2 hours every morning. I'm meditating. When I come home, I take my late night walk. And what you catching me on Periscope or you catch me with the camera, I'm out there for probably an hour or 2 hours before I ever go on camera. And then I'm out there for another hour after I'm off camera. So I'm there a lot of the time. And I only come on to express maybe a few thoughts. So what people are hearing is just really the tip of the iceberg of what the experience is. My desire is to give the experience. The experience transcends anything I can say. It's beyond anything I can say. I really can't say much.
So what is the difference between meditation and prayer, or is it the same thing?
Meditation is becoming familiar with who you are and what you are in the being. And prayer prayer can be that. But the typical way people believe and understand prayer is really giving gratitude for things you don't have physically yet. That's prayer. It's relating yourself to an intelligence in a way of gratitude of having something you've intended already. That's prayer. That's true prayer. That's the only prayer that actually works. In fact, a desire by itself, if you just have a desire and you're grateful for whatever it is you desire, that's prayer. In the Bible, it talks about pray without ceasing. And I always wondered, how do you do it? Pray without ceasing, meaning don't stop, never stop.
Without ceasing, yes, yeah, constant prayer, yeah.
And I asked my grandma, my mom, and the pastors, I said, how do you do that? And nobody could really tell me. I said, they never gave me a constant, how do you do this all day? And I realized after reading and doing some searching for myself and doing it, that it's holding the feeling of the wish fulfilled all day.
So
in
what
the
is
background.
what is your religious background? Your parents? Tell me about
My religious background is I was a Baptist Christian. So I went to church every Sunday, lots of times on Wednesday for Bible study, and sometimes on Saturday for the, as you know, church picnic. So that was my background. I grew up like that.
So you were really in it. Yeah.
Oh yeah, they had the chicken going, the macaroni and cheese after greens, baby. You know, so they put that on the plate. That was the culture. So I grew up around that, and that was my foundation. That was my beginning on learning that there are spiritual concepts to be understood. But the way I was being taught, it did not resonate after a while. It didn't resonate. I said, there's something.
Your father wasn't a Christian.
My father was a Muslim.
Okay.
So he would teach me about, what I learned about Islam is that it's a very practical religion. It's very, very practical. So it seems more masculine than the Christian faith. The Christian faith seems to be a mix of both masculine and feminine, maybe even leaning more on the feminine side of energetically, not, physically, but energetically. And Islam is more masculine, very practical. And I can see why a lot of people gravitated toward Islam. And my dad would always talk about practical things like eating clean, keeping the restroom clean, keeping your feet clean, praying practically 7 times a day or 5 times a day, and making sure the practical things are in place. So he was that kind of guy. And my mom was more of the believe things, faith, emotion. That's how she was. So I really got that practicality and that emotional spiritualism. And I kind of combined it too. And I wanted to know what the bridge was. Where's the practical part of the spirit and where's the spiritual part of the practical?
Yeah.
And I kind of bridged the two.
Yeah. So let me ask you a question. A little more. Well, it's a sort of a general question, I guess. It's my observation, and I think a lot of people will agree that men are different than women, and that if a woman gives a man a problem, the man wants to solve the problem
right away.
But the woman doesn't really care. Doesn't care about the man solving the problem.
She does not.
What's that all about?
Okay, that's a good question. And a lot of people are confused on this, especially men. Men, as our nature is to solve problems, as you said. But the reason women don't seem to care as much about the solution is because they want to involve themselves in the fullest experience of what was happening. And by introducing consciousness to the experience dissolves and corrects itself. This is the same principle in healing. And women are more healing by nature than men are. So what they do is they'll experience the whole thing, all the crevices of it, the parts that were painful, and they'll experience it completely. And after the experience happens, you'll notice that they'll have a release and they'll feel fine after they've spoken it all out or felt it all the way. And that'll solve the problem on its own. They don't have to do anything to solve the problem. Men's brains are saying, let's go directly to the problem, let's fix the problem and move on quickly. It's all about speed for men. Combine those two and you have a force of nature. Men can identify what the exact challenge is. See, this is let me give you an example, okay? So Jackie, that's my woman, okay? That's my lady. She had a challenge with her mom, all right? She had a challenge with her mom. She didn't understand why her mom felt as emotionally as she used to feel. She was erratic, she was upset, she wanted attention. When I explained to her that all she wanted was love and she wasn't getting it, she was around lots of men who weren't able to really have empathy with her and she wanted to be appreciated. I identified the challenge. But what we did was went into the experience again and helped her to experience her mom's perspective, and it healed her perspective and allowed her and her mom to have a closer relationship. So that's a combo of the masculine, identifying what to go to, what the challenge is, and the feminine of let's experience the whole thing. Let's not just act on it so quickly. Let's experience the whole thing so that it can dissolve on its own, and then the answers will pop up on its own. She called her mom, and now her relationship is restored. She appreciates her mom now. She understands where she was coming from. She calls her, texts her a lot more often, and it has a different energy when she texts
her. Okay, well, I think we got that one solved then.
That's a confusing.
Us two guys, we got that one solved.
That's a confusing one. I'm like, what do they want? We ask, like, what do they want? We don't understand. Like, let's just fix the problem.
Solve the problem. So your advice to me is just to listen.
Listen deeply, and I mean deeply listen.
Maybe I'll get another
ask
chance.
More questions than we talk.
Maybe I'll
that's
get another
a difficult
one.
Oh, that's a difficult one.
Yeah,
funny.
So tell me how I get another chance to listen. Okay, so this other concept that I just think it's an interesting concept. The difference between attachment and connection, and I think it's just natural for us to become attached to a lot of different things, to people, but to objects, to cars or to our home. And I know in your work, you around a lot of people that are attached to things. And so maybe it's not so great to be attached to a person because that's going to change. There's just no way. Everything's going to change. Everything changes over time. And but maintain the connection. The connection is what's valuable. The attachment is. Anyway, you talk about it. I'm going on.
No, as the minute that you get attached to something, you lose the connection. The very minute. Imagine the day when you go from dating a girl or just experiencing a person. You were friends at first. There were no obligations. There was just fun, experience, life. You were going out on dates, but there was no expectation. There was nothing there yet. It was still a mystery. That's connection. The minute the title goes on it, boyfriend, girlfriend, we're dating, here come the rules. Here come I don't want you to do anything that I wouldn't want you to do. So you got to follow these rules to make me happy. Here comes that part of it. I don't want to lose you as if you're a possession. Here comes I don't want to lose you. Even if men don't say it, we don't say it like that, but it turns to control for men a lot of times. And it comes to nagging on the woman's side or some way to emotionally keep the man there. So this is what happens when the title comes on. So attachment is when a title or a label gets placed on it with certain expectations. The connection is when you don't know what it is. You're exploring it and experiencing it, but you don't have it. As soon as you have it, you lose the connection. It becomes a possession, and it more becomes a burden than anything. Now this person is not doing what I want you to. You're not doing what I want you to do.
I just loved it. I watched you a couple of weeks ago talking to your lady, and you didn't show us her picture. You put the camera on you. Probably that was the agreement that you had with her.
Yeah.
But you were asking her, "Do I listen to you? Do I listen to you?" And she said, "No." And
no.
Then. And you said, "Yes, yeah. Do I listen to you?" And she said, "Well, no." Well, like, no. Do I listen to you? And I'm thinking, like, oh my God, what a wonderful woman! That woman really loves you because she's telling you, she's telling you the truth. You're asking the question. She knows you want the truth. She knows that's not what she wants the truth to be. Mm-hmm. She knows that's not what you want the truth to be. Yeah, she knows what you want her to say, but she won't do that because she loves you.
Exactly. So if I'm attached to her at that time, I want her to say the right answer, but I had to back up and say, okay, is this how? What do you mean? Explain this to me so I can understand the perspective.
Yeah,
I got an outside perspective. It's good. I like it.
I was watching that, and I was watching you just kind of. It was beautiful. It was beautiful. I could see.
It's hilarious.
I can see
I
what
love
you're
it
going through.
because she don't tell me what she want me to hear. She says exactly as her experience presents.
Yeah.
That's how she is. I love it too. I love it.
Yeah.
I love it. The best.
So, but it seems to me that you have kids. You maybe you buy a house, you get a mortgage, you have these things going on. You're supporting each other. Somewhere along the line, you're going to have an attachment. You have to have a commitment. Is the commitment? Oh, wait a minute. Let me ask this: is the commitment the same as attachment?
I know. I love this question because it is a thin line. So when it's two people in a relationship, and you have the same vision, you've decided that you had the same vision. That's the part that we get mixed up. We have to decide and explore each other well enough to know what each other's visions are. So if we're doing a project together, doesn't matter who's involved in the project. If we're going to accomplish the project and you have a part to play in it and I do too, well, we both have to work in the same direction. And there are certain things that are necessary, but I'm not going to make her commit to them. She's going to commit what she decides she's going to commit to it. I'm not going to put the commitment on her. She has to put the commitment on herself, or I'm not making her commit at all. Okay. And I also have to do the same. So when it comes to commitment in a relationship or commitment to raising kids a certain way, if the person you're with commits to doing something, not by coercion, not because I persuaded you to, not because I'm so energetic and influential, but because you genuinely feel this is the best option for our kids, for our life, for our finances, for our relationship, for our romance, and I do too, well, here comes the next part, which is challenging: accountability. So I'm keeping her accountable only to what she has committed to. And it's in the way that she wants to be held accountable. So I have to understand my partner on how does she like to be kept accountable? And what am I keeping her accountable to? And we have a discussion and a conversation about that. Same with me. I need to be told directly when I'm not doing something because I probably just had an ADHD moment and just forgotten, okay? So I need to be reminded constantly, okay? You gotta correct me. It's not intentional, but I still have obligations to meet that I told you I was gonna meet. So it's that conversation and clarity meeting that you have, not just in the beginning, but throughout the day, throughout the year, throughout your life. The constant clarification and accountability is commitment, but it's the commitment they make.
You can never relax, can you? You can never relax, can you?
Never on that. It's certain things you can't relax on. You relax on that, your relationship will relax out of your hands, if that makes sense.
Hey, listen, this has been a lot of fun. I really enjoy this. We're gonna have to wrap it up, but. Oh my, we have other topics to cover, so we're gonna have to we'll have to go at this again.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah,
for sure.
We will do that.
Thank you for having me on. I appreciate you.
But so you're Josh the Shaman.
Josh the Shaman 11 or Josh the Shaman on all platforms. YouTube is Josh the Shaman. Instagram is Josh the Shaman 11. I'm even Josh the Shaman on Reddit. I'm Josh the Shaman everywhere. So it's Josh the Shaman 11 in some way. Yeah. That's where I am. That's where you can find me.
Yeah, if you put in Joshua Livingston, I find you also. I noticed that.
You can find me that way too.
But Josh the Shaman, that's your email address. All of that is there. So
yep.
I know where to find you, my friend, and you know where to find me. So we will find each other again very soon. And I want to thank all of our viewers for tuning in. It's been a lot of fun. I hope you have enjoyed the conversation. If you have any questions that you'd like to ask Josh the Shaman, you can call me and you can send me an email. I know you can find me, but you can just go directly to Josh the Shaman. Anyway, we will be back. Thank you so much for joining us. Take care. Be well.
Thank you, John.
Bye now.
Have a good one.